There is a pain that lingers not because it is loud, but because it is quiet. It wraps itself around the soul like a heavy, invisible chain, tightening with every breath you take. It is the kind of pain inflicted by the silent cruelty of others, the whispered betrayals, the unseen wounds, the subtle dismissals that happen behind closed doors and in the shadows of conversations. You know this pain, you have felt it, not as a thunderous blow, but as 1,000 silent cuts that no one else could see. And perhaps the cruelest part of all was that no one came to your rescue, because the world around you remained blind to the quiet violence being done to your heart. They smiled in public and stabbed you in private. They wore the mask of kindness, but their hands were soaked in the unseen blood of your trust. Every word unspoken, every sneer disguised as a joke, every moment of cold neglect. They thought it was clever to hurt you silently. They believed that if the wounds were invisible, they would carry no weight. But what they forgot in their arrogance is that life has eyes sharper than human sight. Life sees what the world overlooks. Life records what the world ignores. Have you ever wondered why it felt like no one believed you when you tried to explain your pain? Why your heart screamed while your lips stayed sealed, as though the sorrow you carried was too delicate for the outside world to understand? It is because silent wounds are the hardest to describe and silent betrayals are the hardest to prove. But take heart, for what escapes the judgment of men does not escape the justice of life itself. Life, with all its mystery and quiet power, does not let such acts pass unpunished. While they wounded you in silence, believing themselves to be clever architects of hidden harm, they forgot the simple law that governs existence. What you send out into the world returns, often in a form far louder than you ever imagined. The echoes of their silent cruelty are growing louder by the day, and soon they will be deafened by the noise of their own downfall. Do you feel it? The shift in the wind, the quiet trembling beneath the surface of things? It is not by accident. Life has been preparing a response, patient and precise. While they thought they could escape unseen, life was busy weaving a net of consequences that they themselves cannot escape. Their silent harm will meet life's loud justice, and it will not whisper. It will roar. So, if you have ever laid awake at night, questioning why you were the target of such hidden malice, know this: you were chosen not to be destroyed, but to witness the profound unfolding of justice. You were made to endure, not so you would be broken, but so that you would rise with the full vision of their inevitable collapse. Life has not forgotten you. Life is not silent, even when it seems quiet. Beneath the surface, life has been writing a story, and the next chapter belongs not to your suffering, but to their reckoning. And as you stand at this threshold, poised between the pain of what they did and the justice of what life will do, you may ask yourself, what happens next? How does life return the pain they once thought was cleverly concealed? How does the silent sufferer become the silent witness to the loud collapse of the wrongdoer? Their peace turns into restlessness. There was a time when they hurt you and went about their days as if nothing had happened. Their conscience was quiet, like a calm sea untouched by any storm. They wore their peace like a cloak, sleeping through the nights without a second thought about the pain they had caused. While you lay awake, staring at the ceiling with eyes full of unshed tears, they drifted into slumber without a care in the world. They believed their silence had shielded them from any consequence. They thought that because no one witnessed their cruelty, it would never return to haunt them. But life, in its silent wisdom, was only waiting for the right moment. What they never understood is that peace gained through the suffering of another is temporary, a fragile illusion that eventually crumbles. The mind, no matter how cleverly it suppresses guilt, carries every shadow of wrong it has ever committed. Thus, time has a way of peeling back the layers of comfort they wrap themselves in, exposing the raw truth beneath. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, their peace begins to unravel. It begins with small moments of unease, an inexplicable anxiety, a restless toss in the middle of the night, a strange heaviness that creeps into their chest. These are not random sensations. They are the quiet awakening of their own conscience. You see, the mind cannot forever silence the cries of a wounded soul it has wronged. When they close their eyes, they are no longer met with restful darkness, but flickers of your face, of the trust they broke, of the quiet suffering they once ignored. They remember the moments they dismissed you, the times they chose to turn away instead of offering kindness. And these memories, which once seemed so far away, now surface uninvited, like unwelcome guests in the stillness of night. There is a unique kind of torment that comes from the inside out. Unlike physical pain, which is visible and momentary, internal unrest is relentless. It seeps into their bones and whispers into their thoughts when they least expect it. During moments of silence, when the world outside is calm, the storm within begins to rage. They find themselves restless in places that once brought them comfort. Familiar surroundings feel foreign, and peace becomes a stranger. They search for distraction, for noise to drown out the quiet guilt, but no amount of sound can silence a conscience that has been awakened. What they once took from you, your peace of mind, your ability to rest, your sense of safety in the quiet of night, is now slipping from their grasp, and they feel it deeply. The same sleeplessness that once consumed you now haunts their night. The same heaviness you carried silently now weighs upon their chest. Their thoughts spiral into a web of regret and fear, tangled beyond escape. They ask themselves questions they once dismissed. What if it comes back to me? What if life is keeping score? What if I cannot outrun what I have done? They thought they had buried the past so deep it would never resurface. But the past is not a corpse to be buried. It is a seed that grows in silence and blooms in its own time. Now that seed has sprouted into thorns within their mind, pricking at their comfort and tearing holes in their false sense of peace. They cannot escape the harvest of what they have sown. Their days are filled with a restlessness that cannot be soothed, and their nights are plagued by thoughts they cannot escape. The peace they once flaunted is now a distant memory, replaced by an unsettling, growing awareness that life does not overlook silent cruelty. Life, with quiet precision, is dismantling the comfort they once held so tightly, leaving them with the same sleepless agony they once so carelessly inflicted upon you. Their hidden deceit becomes public exposure. They believed that silence was their greatest shield, that as long as their lies were whispered in corners and hidden beneath practiced smiles, the truth would remain buried. They wove their deceit like a spider spins its web, delicate and nearly invisible to the eye, confident that their clever weaving would remain undiscovered. Behind closed doors, they betrayed you. In hushed conversations, they painted you in shades of falsehood, twisting reality to suit their convenience. And the most painful part was that no one saw it. You felt like a solitary witness to your own undoing, screaming in a soundproof room while the world outside remained deaf to your truth. But what they never accounted for is the nature of truth itself. Truth, unlike their deceit, is not fragile. It is not easily silenced or hidden. It breathes beneath the weight of lies, gathering strength with every passing moment. They assumed they had buried it so deep that it would never rise again, but truth does not remain buried. It rises like the sun after the longest night, casting light into the darkest corners where their secrets lie. Slowly, life begins to unravel the threads of their web, exposing the deception they so carefully crafted. Imagine the moment when their lies begin to slip, not because you shouted the truth, but because life itself has chosen to reveal it. People they once fooled start to see the cracks in their facade. Questions arise where there was once blind trust. The same audience that once applauded their falsehoods now watches with narrowed eyes, sensing the shift. Their carefully maintained image starts to crumble under the weight of its own dishonesty. And there you stand, watching quietly, no longer needing to defend yourself. Life has taken up your cause. Life, the silent observer, has stepped onto the stage and begun to pull back the curtains. All that was hidden is now exposed, and their deceit is no longer their secret weapon, but their public downfall. They feel the walls closing in as their lies echo louder than any truth they tried to suppress. The shame they thought they had avoided now clings to them, heavy and undeniable. Have you ever seen someone desperately try to hold together the crumbling pieces of their false story? Their panic betrays them, their voice trembles under the weight of questions they cannot answer. The eyes of those they deceived narrow with suspicion, and whispers of doubt spread like wildfire. Life does not need a courtroom to deliver justice. It needs only time and truth. Their exposure is not sudden. It is a slow, agonizing unraveling. With each passing day, another layer of their facade peels away, revealing the rot beneath. And they know, deep inside, that this is no accident. It is life's deliberate answer to their hidden cruelty. The very shadows they use to conceal their actions now turn against them, casting them into the harshest light. You do not need to lift a finger. You do not need to chase after justice, because justice, carried by the quiet force of life, is already in motion. You watch, not as a victim anymore, but as a witness to the inevitable collapse of their deceitful empire. Life, with unrelenting clarity, is exposing them for who they truly are, ensuring that the pain they caused in silence is returned to them tenfold, loud, undeniable, and public for all to see. Their mocking laughter echoes back as tears. There was a time when their laughter pierced through your silence like cruel arrows aimed at an open wound. They chuckled in the shadows, mocking your pain, ridiculing your attempts to make sense of the hurt they inflicted. To them, your suffering was entertainment, dressed in casual cruelty. Each time you stumbled, they smiled with satisfaction, convinced that their silent games had gone unnoticed by life itself. But what they failed to comprehend is that laughter born from the suffering of others never remains sweet for long. It has a strange way of transforming, of turning bitter as it circles back to its origin. Their laughter, once so effortless, is no longer a melody of victory. It has begun to twist within their chest, tightening like a knot that cannot be undone. What once felt like triumph now tastes of ash on their tongue. They thought they were above consequence, that they could dance upon your heartbreak without ever fearing the floor beneath them would give way. But every mocking chuckle they cast into the air has begun to echo back, not as sound, but as a haunting weight upon their spirit. Picture them now, in the quiet moments when no audience remains to applaud their cruelty. Alone with their thoughts, they replay the very scenes they once laughed at. Only this time, the roles are reversed. The amusement fades, replaced by a growing sense of dread. What once seemed like harmless ridicule now gnaws at their insides, reminding them of the cost of their callousness. Their smiles crack under the pressure of realization, and what seeps through the cracks is not joy, but sorrow. They begin to understand that life has a peculiar memory, one that never forgets the sound of mockery directed at the innocent. It is in the stillness of the night, when distractions have quieted and the mask slips away, that their heart becomes a chamber of echoes. Those echoes, filled with the sound of their own laughter, bounce off the walls of their mind until they cannot bear the noise any longer. The same laughter that once filled them with glee now torments them. twisting into reminders of the pain they inflicted. Each echo is a mirror, reflecting back the image of who they truly are beneath the facade. What a cruel irony it is for them to realize that they have become prisoners of their own mockery. They cannot escape it, no matter how far they run or how loud they try to drown it out. The laughter they unleashed returns not as a celebration, but as a relentless reminder of their cruelty. And as it returns, it carries with it the weight of their guilt, pressing down on their spirit until tears rise unbidden from their eyes. There is no refuge for them in the noise they once created. The applause fades, the crowd disperses, and they are left alone with the unbearable sound of their past actions. Their own joy has turned traitor, transforming into a chorus of regrets. Have you ever wondered if they feel it now? The bitterness in their chest? The sting in their eyes? Know this, they do. They feel it deeply, perhaps more deeply than you ever imagined, and those tears once foreign to them now flow freely. Tears of regret, of realization, of sorrow so profound it steals their breath away. The laughter they once used as a weapon now mocks them in return, a relentless torment that no smile can mask. They mocked your pain in secret, believing they were safe from reprisal. But life, with its unwavering justice, has turned their cruel laughter into their most bitter companion, ensuring that the joy they once stole from you is repaid with sorrow they cannot escape. Their silent victim becomes their loud reminder. They wounded you in silence, believing that their quiet cruelty would leave no trace, no scar visible to the outside world. They assumed that by keeping their betrayal hidden, they could continue their lives untouched by guilt or consequence. In their eyes, you were the perfect victim, silent, enduring, too gentle to retaliate, too dignified to expose them. They believed you would fade away into the shadows, carrying your pain alone, while they basked in the comfort of their unchallenged deceit. But they underestimated the resilience of a heart that has suffered silently. They failed to understand that silence is not weakness. It is often the gathering of strength in still waters. You, their chosen victim, have not vanished into obscurity. Instead, you have become the living, breathing reminder of their wrongdoing, a presence they cannot ignore, no matter how hard they try to look away. Every time they cross paths with you, or even hear your name whispered in conversations, a chill runs down their spine. You are no longer just a memory of their cruelty. You are a testament to their failure. They cannot escape the reflection you cast upon them. In your perseverance, they see their own cowardice. In your quiet strength, they confront their own weakness. You, who bore their wounds in silence, now stand as a towering monument to the truth they tried to bury. And the more you rise, the louder your presence becomes in their world. Every step you take forward, every moment you thrive despite their harm, echoes in their mind as a deafening reminder of what they did. Have you noticed it? The way their eyes falter when they see you, the way they shift uncomfortably, as though the air itself has grown heavy with unspoken guilt. It is because your very existence disrupts the false narrative they built to justify their actions. They told themselves you would be broken, that you would remain beneath the weight of their betrayal. Yet here you are, not only standing but walking boldly into a future they swore you would never reach. You have become a living contradiction to their expectations. a daily confrontation they cannot avoid. They might try to erase you from their mind, to rewrite the story they crafted, but life has ensured that your presence remains unavoidable. Every success you achieve, every smile you wear, every ounce of peace you reclaim becomes a thunderous reminder that they failed to destroy you. And in that reminder lies their torment. They see you in the faces of others who admire your strength. They hear your name in places they least expect. You have become a presence that life itself uses to haunt their waking moments. They tried to reduce you to silence, but life has turned you into a voice that echoes louder than any accusation, more piercing than any words you could have spoken. Their guilt grows heavier each time they encounter you, like invisible chains tightening around their conscience. They feel it not just in your presence, but in the reflection of your resilience wherever they turn. You have become the loudest reminder of their silent cruelty, a force they cannot suppress, a truth they cannot deny. And though you never sought revenge, your mere existence has become a powerful retribution. Without raising your voice, without lifting a hand, you have become the loudest chapter in their story. A chapter they cannot skip, a page they cannot tear out, no matter how desperately they try. Their web of lies entangles their own steps. There is a certain arrogance in those who believe they can spin lies like silk and weave them so tightly that no truth will ever escape. They convince themselves that deception is a clever game, a skill to be admired rather than a sin to be feared. In their mind, every false word, every twisted story, every manipulated fact was just another thread added to the web they were crafting. They believed they were architects of their own protection, building walls of lies so high that neither justice nor exposure could ever reach them. And as they watched you struggle in the snare they set, they felt triumphant, assuming they had mastered the game of deceit. But what they never anticipated is the way lies have a life of their own. Lies do not remain obedient servants, they grow wild and unruly, expanding beyond the control of their maker. Every time they spoke a falsehood about you, they had to create another to cover the first, and then another, and another still. What began as a simple deception multiplied into a labyrinth so complex that even they began to lose their way within it. Each step they took to maintain the illusion only led them deeper into confusion, and slowly the threads of their own web began to tighten around their feet. They underestimate the weight of sustaining a lie. At first it feels light, almost effortless, a simple distortion of the truth here, a hidden truth there. But as time passes, the burden grows heavier. To keep their story consistent, they must remember every detail of every fabrication, and that is where the cracks begin to show. Memory falters, stories contradict. Their mind, once sharp in deception, becomes a battlefield of conflicting narratives. They live in fear of being asked the wrong question, of someone noticing the inconsistencies, of the accidental slip of the tongue that unravels their entire facade. You may have witnessed this, the subtle moments when their composure falters, a flicker of hesitation in their eyes, a stammer in their speech, a nervous glance that betrays their inner turmoil. They know they are trapped, though they dare not admit it. What they thought was a net cast to capture you has instead become a snare of their own making. Every attempt to escape only entangles them further. They pull at the threads of their web, desperate to find a way out. But the more they struggle, the tighter the knots become. There is a cruel beauty in this justice. They built their web believing it would shield them, never realizing that the very act of deception is a curse that loops back to ensnare the deceiver. Their days are no longer spent plotting your downfall, but trying to maintain their crumbling narrative. They wake up with dread, wondering which part of their story will betray them today. They move through life carrying the invisible weight of their tangled lies, their every step hindered by the traps they once set for you. What they do not understand is that truth is patient. It waits in silence, watching as the web thickens and tightens. Truth does not rush to expose the lie. It allows the deceiver to walk deeper into their own maze until there is no way out, and that is where they find themselves now, lost in the darkness of their own making, unsure of which way to turn, fearing that every path leads to their downfall. They become isolated, not because others have turned away from them, but because they have distanced themselves, afraid of being found out. Trust erodes, relationships built on lies begin to fracture. The very people they once manipulated start to sense the deception, and suspicion creeps in like a shadow that cannot be cast away. They speak less, afraid that every word might be the one that unravels their web entirely, and in their silence, the weight of their deceit grows heavier. Have you noticed the exhaustion in their eyes? The way their once confident stride has become cautious, as if they are tiptoeing through their own life? It is the burden of carrying too many lies, the fear of exposure gnawing at their every moment. They have become prisoners of their own narrative, living in a cell constructed not by others, but by their own dishonest hands. Their web, which they wove with such pride, has become their greatest torment. It clings to them, wraps around their spirit, and drags them down with every passing day. And though they once believed they could navigate it skillfully, they now realize they are ensnared beyond escape. What was meant to trap you has trapped them instead, and the web tightens relentlessly, knot by knot, until even they cannot deny the justice of life's silent hand at work. Their isolation grows as their masks fall. In the beginning, they wore their mask. Have you seen it happen? Have you noticed how those who once stood beside them now keep their distance, as if sensing the storm brewing beneath their polished surface? It is not by accident. Life, with its quiet wisdom, ensures that the truth becomes too loud to ignore. The energy they once radiated has shifted. What was once magnetic now repels. People, whether they understand it consciously or not, are drawn to authenticity and repelled by deception. And as their mask continues to slip, the hollow sound of their falsehood becomes undeniable. Their isolation grows, not because they have been publicly exposed in grand fashion, but because the subtle, relentless erosion of trust works like water against stone. Slow but inevitable, day by day their circle narrows. The voices that once praised them now fall silent. The eyes that once admired them now look away, uncomfortable with what they see, but cannot fully explain. They begin to sense it deeply in the pit of their stomach, an ache that no amount of performance can soothe. In the solitude of their own mind, they replay their choices over and over, wondering when exactly the shift began. They remember the moments they chose cruelty over kindness, deception over truth, pride over humility, and with each memory, the walls close in a little tighter. They feel abandoned, but what they fail to grasp is that it is not the world abandoning them, it is their own actions isolating them from the world. There is a cruel irony in this unfolding. They who once relished the company of others, who thrived on attention and admiration, now find themselves alone with their own thoughts. The very thoughts they tried to bury beneath layers of lies and performances. The loneliness they once forced upon you now creeps into their life with relentless persistence. They feel the cold of isolation settle over them, a chill that no external warmth can chase away. And perhaps the most painful part is that they cannot escape themselves. They cannot step out of their own mind, cannot turn away from the reflection that now stares back at them with accusing eyes. Their mask, once a shield, has become a mirror, forcing them to confront the truth they so desperately tried to hide. No crowd remains to distract them, No applause remains to drown out the quiet verdict life has delivered. Their isolation grows deeper, not as an event, but as a slow, suffocating process. Each day feels heavier than the last. Each interaction feels more forced, more empty. The silence they once dismissed as harmless now roars in their ears, reminding them that the life they built on deception is collapsing, brick by brick. They stand in the ruins, not as victims, but as architects of their own solitude, trapped in the very emptiness they once condemned you to endure. Their silent cruelty awakens loud consequences. There is a chilling arrogance in the hearts of those who harm quietly. They move like shadows across the lives of others, slipping unseen between moments, leaving wounds that no eye can easily detect. They operate under the belief that silence shields them, that because their cruelty does not echo loudly in the world, it carries no weight and it triggers no consequence. They convince themselves that pain, when delivered in whispers rather than shouts, goes unnoticed not only by people, but by life itself. And in this false sense of safety, they continue, thinking that their covert betrayals have secured them immunity from the justice they so deeply deserve. But what they fail to see is that life, though it may move in silence, listens far better than they imagined. Life listens not with ears but with truth itself. It watches not with eyes but with justice that never sleeps. Their silent cruelty does not slip by unnoticed. It is recorded, moment by moment, in the quiet ledger of cause and effect. And while they carried on with the delusion of freedom, life was gathering every hidden action, every unspoken harm, every veiled betrayal, like a storm gathering strength over still waters. There is something profoundly terrifying about consequences that build in silence. Unlike immediate punishment, which is loud and sudden, silent consequences mature with time, growing stronger and more unavoidable with each passing day. They do not announce their arrival with warning signs. Instead, they wait patiently, invisibly threading their way into the fabric of the wrongdoer's life until escape is no longer possible. Those who inflict pain in silence rarely understand this until it is far too late. They thought they could escape because they heard no thunder following their cruelty. They mistook the quiet for approval, not realizing that life often works beneath the surface, quietly constructing a response that is far louder than the original offense. It begins subtly, almost imperceptibly. Opportunities they once seized with ease begin to slip through their fingers. Relationships that once flourished under false charm begin to sour without clear explanation. Their steps grow heavier, their days feel longer, and an invisible weight begins to settle on their shoulders. This is no coincidence. It is the loud answer to their silent cruelty. Life has begun to answer them in a language they cannot ignore, a language not spoken in whispers, but in undeniable experiences that force them to confront the reality they created. The very silence they once relied upon has turned against them, amplifying every consequence until it roars in their ears and rattles the foundation of their carefully constructed world. What once felt like control now feels like chaos. They sense it in the quiet moments when they are alone with their thoughts, and the shadows of their past actions loom larger than ever before. They feel it in the discomfort that creeps into their interactions, as though life itself has turned the world's gaze upon them. Every glance feels suspicious, every conversation weighted with unspoken truths. They carry their own guilt like a bell around their neck, ringing out their wrongdoing to anyone perceptive enough to hear. And perhaps the most harrowing realization of all is that they cannot locate the source of their unraveling. Because their cruelty was executed in silence, the consequences too arise from invisible origins. There is no single event to blame, no obvious moment of exposure they can point to. It is an accumulation, A tidal wave formed from countless small ripples they once believed were harmless. The very thing they trusted to protect them, the quiet, has become their greatest betrayer. There is no shelter from consequences delivered by life itself. Unlike human justice, which can be swayed or delayed, life's justice is relentless and precise. It finds them in the moments they least expect, infiltrating their days and haunting their nights. They find themselves glancing over their shoulder, sensing an unseen force at play, wondering how the ground beneath them has grown so unstable. They try to regain control, to patch the leaks in their sinking ship, but every effort is met with frustration. The doors that once opened effortlessly now remain closed. The paths that once lay clear now twist into confusion. They feel pursued not by people, but by the very energy they set into motion through their silent cruelty. They cannot silence the consequences, cannot hide from them, cannot outrun them. They can only endure the storm they themselves created. What makes this justice so profound is not its volume, but its depth. It does not need to scream to be heard. It is felt in the marrow of their bones, in the tightness of their chest, in the constant pressure of an invisible force pressing against their spirit. It is the loud consequence of silent cruelty, an undeniable response from life that ensures the pain they inflicted in the shadows now greets them in broad daylight, unavoidable and deafening in its clarity. And now, as we stand at the edge of this truth laid bare, take a breath and feel the weight of this revelation settle deep within your spirit. You have walked through fire, quietly, courageously, and with a dignity that many could never understand. They hurt you in silence because they believed silence was safety. They believed that no witness meant no reckoning, no screams meant no justice, no outcry meant no consequence, but life has proven them wrong in ways far louder than they ever imagined. The beauty of divine justice is not in its haste, but in its certainty. You see, life allows them to believe they have escaped, for a moment, for a season. It lets them laugh in the silence of their wrongdoing, lets them build their castles on the fragile sand of deceit. But when life moves, it moves with the force of 1,000 storms. When it answers the cries of the silent sufferers, it does not whisper, it thunders, and it has thundered for you. What they thought was hidden has become their loudest exposure. What they believed was harmless mockery has returned as relentless torment. What they built upon lies is now collapsing beneath the weight of undeniable truth. They tried to silence your pain, but life has made sure they cannot silence the consequences. Every step they take echoes with the sound of their own betrayals. Every breath they draw is heavy with the weight of their own guilt. Life, with infinite patience, has unfolded its justice not in the noise of accusation, but in the thunderous silence of their downfall. So now you must understand something deeply important. You never needed to chase justice. You never needed to beg for their punishment or plead for their exposure. Life, in its perfect timing, has done what no words could achieve. It has turned your silent tears into a loud testimony, your quiet endurance into an unstoppable force of reckoning. You have become the evidence of their failure, the living proof that silent cruelty never remains unpunished. Let this truth settle into your heart and let it give you peace. The burden you carried is not yours anymore. Life has lifted it from your shoulders and placed it firmly on theirs where it belongs, and they will carry it. Not for a moment, not for a day, but for as long as it takes for them to understand the gravity of what they have done. They thought they were clever, escaping unseen, but they were merely setting the stage for their own loud and public reckoning. You who walked through shadows now stand in the light. You who suffered in silence now hear the echoes of justice in every corner of your life. You who once questioned if life saw your pain now witness life itself rising to defend you. Stand tall in this moment. Stand tall in the knowledge that the justice of life is never absent, only patient. Let them hear the noise of their downfall while you embrace the quiet peace that they once tried to steal from you. Let them wrestle with their guilt